Hello there, YouTube. This is Zoo Tycoon Steve, welcoming you to another episode of our Planet Zoo Let's Play. I'm beginning to regret more and more the name I chose for myself, as we're going to be playing Zoo Tycoon less and less. But we are going to be playing Planet Zoo today. We're going to be continuing in our franchise zoo. And I'm actually going to stop what we've been doing as we've been marching slowly off to the left here. And because we've been putting in a couple different African animals, I'm going to decide to make this just like our African area. But I want to do an animal that is not native to the African continent today. So I decided I'm going to build off to the right here. And I want to build sort of a larger exhibit. I want to build an exhibit with a larger animal, and I'm particularly interested on focusing on a guest area, like an inside area where the guest can view. That's something that I haven't been doing with the zoo yet. I really haven't done it with Planet Zoo a lot. The only thing we've really done even close to that are these little itty-bitty guest viewing areas, which worked out pretty good, but we can do better than that. We've unlocked a lot of building material now. So what we're going to go is try to put in a grizzly bear exhibit. And this is going to be an ambitious one, but I think we've got more than enough money now. We're going to go for this big. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a, generally in this area, it's going to be the inside viewing area for the guest. I'm going to want the path to continue around, so there's an outside viewing area for the guests that I'm going to pit, or so the ground is lower than the walkway. That way you can kind of look down into the bear. I'm also going to want to put in a inside shelter for the bears in this general location. We'll dress it up all nice so that the guests won't see anything. And then we're also going to want to put a small outside shelter that's off exhibit, kind of like what we did with the African wild dogs, how we built this off exhibit area so they'd have plenty of room. And then of course we're going to have to put in zookeeper facilities too. So this is an ambitious build. It's going to be a large area. I'm specifically going with the grizzly bears because it's a large animal that needs a lot of space. I'm going to kind of force myself out into that. So that's the plan for today. I really don't know how this is going to go. Hopefully well, but wish me luck. And I guess... what else was I going to say? Well, nothing. Well, here, if you can think of a better name than Zoo Tycooner Steve, since I'm no longer just doing Zoo Tycoon 2, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. But anyway, that's for later. For now, let's get to making a hopefully outstanding grizzly bear exhibit. Okay, so we're just going to do a bit of a speed build here. Doing a speed build a little bit faster than usual because it would take forever. This one took quite a long time to get going. So first thing we're going to do is go ahead and grab our grizzly bears here. I went ahead and checked to make sure I would have enough size. Because grizzly bears, even though we're not going to do a lot of them, we're going to just keep it down to a mating pair. They have big territories. So we'll go ahead and get this 3-star guy here. And we're going to have to end up building, I think, eventually just kind of a breeding zoo. So first thing, or for those of you who don't know, a way to build up conservation credits in this game is just to like have one zoo that all you do is kind of farm baby animals to trade in. Haven't done that yet, but might do that in the future. Probably do that off camera. Well, if you want to see it, leave a comment in the comments below. I can show you the farming zoo. Or maybe that's what I'll call it. Anyway, first thing we're doing here, you can see I'm already going ahead and building sort of the walls and basic structure for what's going to become the inside viewing area for our guest. Like I mentioned in the intro, definitely wanted to start incorporating that. Something that's a little bit wonky in this game, and I haven't quite figured out yet, is how to handle 45-degree angles. Because if you build things on a grid, it only lets you do it at a 50-degree angle. Now, unfortunately, I found kind of a way I could play along, or play around it, so that I ended up using 90-degree angles for this. But I would like the option to do 45-degree angles. So if you can't do it, game developers, get on it. If you can do it, someone who's not as dumb as me, leave a comment below. I know I'm asking for a lot of comments today, but that's all right. It'll help the algorithm or whatever that does exactly. But basically the idea here is, you can see we have a lower area that's going to be kind of our entrance foyer. And then we're going to go ahead and build that big front area. Is going to be just a nice glass display. I'm also building a couple of rooms just off to the side here. Now, I'm doing this for 2 reasons, these things on the side. One is if I need to hide like a fence or an object near the glass, I want to have like an empty space that the guests can't see, that you can't even see once everything's built, and I can float it in there. The other reason is I just thought it was a little too plain Jane if I just built it straight across, so it was a little bit just aesthetic whimsy. But anyway, we'll go ahead and float it into the area and put down a pathway, and then we need to connect it to the pathway from the Warthog / Ostrich exhibit. So I just kind of built out a basic path on a grid here, and then I decided the way I was going to fix it is to make, it took me a few tries to get this right. Now I remember this, it was horrible. But basically what I was going to do is make just a little pathway there with the empty space in it. Pathways in this game, for those of you just joining us in progress, a bit of a problem. It uses the same system as the Planet Coaster. It's the exact same people made it, and they use the exact same pathway system. And honestly, if you're looking for a tutorial that will help you do it, or help you learn how to do paths a little better, the best ones I've found are actually for Planet Coaster. So I'd recommend looking that up, like Planet Coaster Paths instead of Planet Zoo Paths. But go ahead, I'm just going to loop the path around here, because something I did learn is that pathways will actually block your digging tools. So this is going to let us build that pit I was talking about. It's going to be right up against there. We're going to eventually put in a viewing area for the guests there, but it won't require them to go inside. We're going to put a little roof over it so it's shady and everything and very comfortable for our guests there, but they won't have to enter the building. And then we'll go ahead and I'm going to just build the inside part of the bear exhibit. This would be like the cages where we pin them at night, or if we had to keep them separate or whatever. Now, obviously, they won't have to go into here at night. They can roam the exhibit if that's safe for them. But we want to have the option to pen them up if we have to. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it wooden on the outside, and I'll put these corrugated walls on the inside. So on the inside, it looks a little bit more industrial, but from the guest on the outside, it's in theming with what we built. And just put that floor down in there too. Very good. And that's right. This one took me a little bit to figure out how I wanted to do this roof. This is actually, if you're trying to copy this design, don't bother to put those triangles up. Spoiler alert, we're going to change them later. But I thought it was a good idea to leave in the mistakes and kind of show you how it evolved. And instead of doing a lot of editing, I'm just speeding it up, talking over it. Although there probably is going to be an edit point. There's one point where I really mess up, and I'm going to leave that to the viewer to discover where. But anyway, let's go ahead, and I see I floated that in so that it's sort of touching our inside exhibit, but it's touching it at a kind of a weird angle, and that's why I built them separately. Because, again, I haven't quite figured out that 45-degree thing, or I guess it could be any angle that's not 90 degrees. For some reason, they're really into 90-degree angles in design for this game. It's odd. It's odd, but we'll live with it. So you can see what I did here is... Okay, real quick cut there, so this doesn't last an eternity, this video. Just to show you what I did kind of off camera, or what I did multiple times before I finally got it right. And in fact, now that I'm looking at it, it looks like this fence is a little off. Basically, after I landed the inside area and connected it up with the guest viewing area, I just put a fence around there, putting in a glass fence on the front here. And then I laid down, because the glass fence couldn't line up exactly with the wall we're putting in here. You can see if you look it down, there is a little gap there. We'll go ahead and disguise it later. But I went ahead and just put down some mud floor tiles that stick over 1 meter into the bear area. And I actually am okay with that. I feel like that's something an actual zoo would have designed. I also put up a couple of angled walls with a monitor on them, just so I could have my information signs in there. And then I'll show you what fence I've put in so far here. If we edit the barrier, I can highlight the whole thing. So I've got the glass fence at the start there, and then I've got a couple of null fences going through the viewing exhibit. And then we wrapped around some log pole fences that are the same design as the building materials we're using around that outside area there. And now you're all cut up and Now you are all caught up, and you don't have to see my many failures trying to get that glass to work. So I've saved you several minutes of your life and several hours of mine. Okay, get back to just the regular building so you can see it. Alright, so getting back here to the speed build, this is the point where I decided that I wanted a little outdoor porch area for the inside of the bear exhibit. So the first thing I went through, and I went ahead and chopped all of the tall grass on the inside so it's not poking through. Put down that cement across the front, and then I'm going to build just like a little awning. Now they do have awnings in this game. Oh, this is actually where I was trying to figure out the roof to get it to the way I exactly wanted. Putting those little triangle things is okay, but not for the type of roof that I wanted. So there's a way to do it, but don't do it that way. Basically then, I did put in the awning though. So you can see I just laid that across there. Then we'll go ahead and grab those poles and bloop, bloop. And I think that was a third bloop if I remember right. I haven't done the walkthrough in a second, so. Oh, that's right, I wanted to put some trimmings on it, but I didn't see one that I liked. So I just went ahead, put in that third post, and now it's got a kind of place where the bears can rest. And that's really inspired by the bear exhibit at the Fort Worth Zoo. If you go there, they have a black bear exhibit, and there's like a little house that's clearly the indoor side, but they've dressed it out. Indoor place for the bears, but they've dressed it so it looks like a house, and it's got a nice little like cement porch that the bears are always sleeping in because it can get hot in Texas, and it's a shady place. Anyway, going on here, run the fence through the indoor area so we can make that part of the actual exhibit, and then we went ahead and created the outside. I can never say this. I had the same problem with the wild dogs. We're creating the off exhibit outdoor area for the bears. And I'm raising up, you can see I'm raising up the fence here. Good rule of thumb, in the Zoopedia, it should tell you how high a fence you need in order to keep an animal from climbing out. The bears need like a 6-foot fence. So all the fencing that we've put it in, spoiler alert, I'm going to have to raise it all quite high before this is done. Because those guys can climb. Anyway, this is the time where I decided to start making plans for our zookeepers and their zookeeper area. We put in the door for the zookeepers. It's going to be in the off exhibit area, so that way they can enter and exit where the guests can't see them at all, and they should be able to walk through everything. Oh, I also started putting down the wall for the wrap around the zoo, so people can't just jump in and out without paying their tickets. I mean, come on, I gotta collect those dollar bills, y'all. And then we're going to go ahead and build up our zookeeper area. And I really didn't have a plan for this area so much. I just kind of wanted to leave a little extra room around everything, so it looked like it was a nice, perfectly square building. And then on the inside, I was willing to cheat in some of these walls, like you can see. I'm so glad that gate didn't mess up. I've had a lot of problems getting gates to line up perfectly in this game, but that one worked fine. That gate really worked fine. And then I put in this little extra wall here, just to make it so it didn't look like the gate would swing open to the bears and there was like nothing there. I wanted there to be like a 2-door system. Like, you know, the bears, like you have to close one door before you're allowed to open the other, and that prevents them from escaping. I figure for animals that would easily escape, like little birds, or for animals that would tear your face off, like bears, good idea to have that secondary door. Unfortunately, for those of you who don't know, the game itself only lets you put one gate in each exhibit, but you can put like the fake doors up anywhere you want and make it look like at least there are multiple entrances or multiple doors. Oh, that's right. It took me a second too to get this working. For some reason, I couldn't line that up with the grid of the thing I've been building. For some reason, it didn't let me, so I had to float the ground for our zookeeper area all by itself. This was the point where, for some reason, I went insane and decided that what I wanted to do was fill in that little gap created by the fencing for our bears. If you'll remember, I didn't quite know in the first episode how I wanted to build this up. So I decided that I wanted to fill in the area, but I didn't want to just use plants to make it worthless. So I'm going to go ahead and move our information booth over to this side. I didn't think it ever looked great next to like the couple of drink stands and the food stand we had there. So I went ahead and just moved it over, and we're going to build up a nice little house for it. And first off, obviously, we got to fix the pathway that was there before. That was annoying. I don't know why I deleted that pathway, but, you know, it do, so you got to go back in and fix. And then just drop in some rocks to make it look nice. Because nothing looks nicer than rocks when you think about it. This is something that also took me a second, but I think it was mostly because I was being a big dum-dum. The problem is that if you have the the information booth in there is going to want to try to match the path to that. So the obvious solution is don't put the information booth in until you've got the path ready, and then once you do, so see what I did here. I mean, I'm trying to explain this, but words are hard for me because I'm not a smart person. So what I did there, you can see I just made a path and curved it severely, so there's that little gap in between. And instead of having that be a problem, I decided to use that to my benefit as a way of sort of theming the area. So I'm going to go ahead and dress up this booth now so it matches the bear exhibit. So we're going to end up with two sort of theming areas. When you go to the zoo, if you go to the left, you kind of get those mud hut African designs. If you go to the right, you kind of get the New World dark wood designs, which kind of match our fences. But you can see here I'm putting in these sort of faux fences, and then I'm going to just line them up with that little gap in between our pathways, so it kind of looks like it was a natural thing. I'll put in our information sign, a couple of benches, some trash cans, because people will be throwing their trash everywhere in the zoo at this point. And then I put the ambient sound thing on top of the building, just so you could kind of better hide it, because I knew I was going to put a roof on top that would cover it, but people will still be able to hear it because it actually does, the game detects the sounds from your speakers in a sphere and not just a circle. And then I just kind of covered up that little bit of the path I didn't like with some plant life, threw some of the higher elephant grass in the background just to get it filled in a little bit better. You can see I'm kind of just grabbing from other places in the zoo, using the same kind of plants we've already used, so it all ties together. And at this point I had a little inspiration. I went ahead and grabbed these sort of generic information signs, and I floated them halfway into the walls. And that has the benefit of, okay, that's just when I realized, and once again I'm realizing as I watch it and talk over it, that is, I didn't have power extending far enough to reach that. So you see I'm going to have to sneak a little power thing into our bear exhibit. Our grizzly bear exhibit, I should say grizzly bear, because I believe there are 3 species of bears in the game. Yeah, I think there are 3 species. I think there's a black bear, and there's like a Mosin bear or something, a species I'm not really familiar with. I played around with this for a while, I don't know what to do with those thatched roofs. In my mind, they're going to work wonderfully everywhere, and when I plug them down, they never quite look the way I want them to. So I don't know how I'm going to rate them. I guess, that might be me. It might just be I'm aesthetically challenged when it comes to the thatched roofing department. But eventually I just gave up and decided to let it go. Oh, I shouldn't have mentioned, you can see here I'm just building sort of an empty box next to the information booth, and that's just to make it look like it's a little bit more filled and a little bit more of a substantial building than just the little 4 meter by 4 meter booth. Plus it gave me a chance to do a little decorating by throwing these things down, which I don't know what they're supposed to be, but I think they look pretty good there. So I just threw them on there, gives it a little color, and then I threw in those posts, again, just to give it a little color, and then fill in that little pathway there with some flowers. Again, just to make it all look like that was done on purpose. Okay, let's get back to what we were actually here for, and that's the bear exhibit. You can see that the electricity, it's enough to get the exhibit going, not quite enough to reach the TV and the signage we put into the north. So I'm going to have to get that fixed, but first let's go ahead and dig out our pit. Also wanted to put in a little water hazard for them right there. And we'll change these fences so that they're got glass in them. Really need to note to self as I'm making this, I really need to research the two-way glass, because the place where I'm building this zoo has a really, really high heat index, and it cracks the glass real quick. So I'm going to have to get that improved. See, the first thing I'm doing here is I'm taking the viewing platforms that we actually put in the very first episode in our warthog exhibit. It was just a warthog exhibit at that time. Using those to kind of just create a real easy outside area. And then we're going to go ahead and sort of make it so the glass is all nice and straight against that. And then cut down the grass inside of it so it's not poking through. Very good. And you can see you have a real nice view of the bears there. I didn't feel confident in like lowering the fence there because I didn't think it was 6 feet deep and I didn't want the bears to climb out. That was my original plan, and I think it makes more sense, but we're kind of getting away with putting in these viewing platforms. Now comes the point where we put in the pathway so our zookeepers can get into the exhibit. And we'll actually have to... I started naming these buildings so I could keep track of them. So, bear viewing house, innkeeper inside. That makes it a lot easier. I wish I had started doing that sooner. For some reason, I just didn't realize you could name things because I'm not very observant and I didn't really look. Anyway, now is the point where I plop the grizzly bears in so I could see exactly what they needed to be happy. And for a long time, I thought I had made a mistake because it kept telling me they couldn't get to the grizzly bears. So the first thing I did, I realized I didn't make a work zone, so we had to make a new grizzly bear work zone, which means we needed to hire new employees and staff and set them up on the work zone. And it took me a long time to realize that I wasn't getting my bears because when I redid the pathways, I actually cut off the zookeeper pathway that lets you go to the animal training center. So you can see I'm poking around here like an idiot. And I decided not to cut this, just as a good reminder both to myself and to you. If it's telling you the zookeepers can't get to your exhibit, it may be because you've abandoned your exhibit there. Anyway, after a quick cut, you can see that we've got the bears inside. And we're going to go ahead and paint the area now to get it all nice and happy for them. They really like soil and rock, which is pretty cool, actually. They like a little bit of short grass. And I'm proud to say that this exhibit is redonkulously huge. There's plenty of room in here. I probably made it way too big. Which is good because it means we don't have to worry about them ever getting upset. And if we have to go back and steal some room, we can do that. I don't imagine us needing to do that, but we can. Anyway, this is just the point where we're kind of painting out, particularly the tall grass, getting it turned over to rock, and just trying to generally make this area look great. Now, if you do build like I do, always remember that it still counts the terrain below the floor on your inside area. So if you need a little extra room, or it's telling me that, like, how is there still grass when I tried to delete the grass, don't forget to check in the area underneath your floors, because that still counts. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and build this wall of trees. And the main point of this wall of trees here is to, one, make the bears happy, but two, also separate the inside and the outside viewing areas. I don't want guests looking at other guests. And that's a problem I think I have a lot with my builds. I don't think about that beforehand a lot of times, and sometimes you end up just staring at other people, and you're not there to look at people, you're there to look at animals. Alright, so we go ahead and build that wall of trees. Then I'm going to go ahead and throw down rocks. One thing I discovered is that the grizzly bears in this game really like foliage. Like, they do not feel happy unless there is a lot of foliage around. So you're going to see that I have to keep going back and adding more and more trees. So if you're planning on making a grizzly bear exhibit, plan on what was I going to say there? Trees, line of thought. Plan on making like a thicket, I guess is what I want to say. Probably your best idea is to have like one area where it's really easy to see the bears, where like they have to come out to get the food, but the rest of it they can kind of go and hide in. Or that you can see them, but only from a distance, except in that thicket area. That's kind of what worked best for me. And you see the way that I kind of compensated for it is I would build these little groups of rocks, just kind of scatter them around there to whatever looked pleasing. And then I would build up a bunch of plants around there. The idea being that it kind of creates little pathways for the bears to walk through where I can kind of direct them. Because the animals in this game are smart enough to avoid trying the rocks. They kind of, they avoid them. I also am going to build up, you'll see a lot of trees and plants like in the corners, particularly the corners of the fence that you can see from one of the viewing areas. And the reason I do that is because I want to kind of artificially create the feeling that there's not a fence, that it just keeps going into a deeper and deeper forest. And I think that's something that could really improve the look of your exhibits. At least I think it turns out great. So if you're looking for a way to snazz your exhibits, definitely try that. Just kind of hiding your fence as much as possible. And of course, if you're super into that in Planet Zoo, the easiest thing to do would just be to use a null fence, which is invisible to the eye, and then just put like a bunch of rocks or other natural barriers where you think those would be. I think that is one of the big keys to getting this game to work right. Okay. But enough of the trees. You're not here for the trees, I'm assuming. You probably want to see this awesome inside area I'm going to build. Tried the awnings, and actually I think they look pretty good. The problem is that they kind of stick through. They're very clearly designed specifically to go in front of the shops and stuff. So if you want to use the awnings, you absolutely can. They're actually going to look great, but make sure you sort of build in places you can hide it. Let's talk about the climbing structures in this, because the grizzly bears are the first animals I have that can interact with the climbing structures. First thing, I'm pleased to say that as long as the grade is not too steep, as long as you provide them with enough climbing devices, all the animals that are enabled can climb. I have seen all my grizzly bears climb up these structures. Definitely worth making. I'm not going to go into super detail here. What I might do is fairly soon build like up a primate exhibit that I can really kind of show it off. Not 100% sure of that. Probably shouldn't have said that on camera. You guys, well, I can always edit it. I'm probably too stupid to edit it, though. I guarantee you this isn't the final video, and you're all laughing at me, wondering when I'm going to make that primate exhibit. Well, maybe I'll never make the primate exhibit. You can't force me to. Although, comment in the comments below if that's something you really want to see. I'll probably bend to will. Real quick, what I'm doing on the inside exhibit here is I'm just putting in a couple of free-floating chain link fences, and the idea is to make these look like separate pins for the grizzly bears. They're not going to actually be functional, but we're going to get them to look very functional, and that's the key here. It's just to make it look like there are two separate pins that we could separate our two grizzly bears into, like so. Yeah. And then I mentioned before that the grizzly bears, they need like a height of 6 feet for their fences. But since these ones aren't going to be functional anyway, and they can't climb out because they're in the middle of the exhibit, I'm just going to leave these at about 3 feet because that's the aesthetically pleasing height to me. Throw in a couple of these animal doors here. And these things are literally just called animal doors, but they're pretty cool. They do a good job of making it look great. Now, I will tell you, after this was over, I found that there were problems with these animal doors in that they stopped zookeepers from going in and out. I was having problems with the hitbox issues and things like that. So you might want to watch out for that. It might be better to use them simply as a for decoration. Like, if you're not going to actually build an inside exhibit where you want to get the impression, maybe just put a higher wall with one of those doors on it. I might try that in the future. Let's see. What else can I say? Let's go ahead and start talking about the roof to this place. So, you'll see the way I built it. The first thing I did was lay a flat ceiling across with a corrugated metal, just so when you're inside it and you're looking around, it looks correct. And then after getting rid of those sort of triangle pieces, we went ahead and this took me a while to get lined up for some reason. Basically, I want to get this roof lined up entirely with the, I'm trying to think of what the game calls them. What do they call that side thing? It's not siding, it's going to drive me nuts. Well, I can't, the ledges. So I'm just going to call them the ledges because in my mind I can't even. But essentially, it's got 3 types of roofs in this game. They got the flat roof, the pitched roof, which is what we're using now, and then it's got like the roof trimmings or whatever they call them, ledges, trimmings, and those things are just like those little parts I'm putting on right now that kind of just wrap around, and they help to really sell it. If you can have your roof extend just a little bit beyond the walls, kind of like we actually build them, it really looks good. So I'm going to start doing that all the time if I can. Yeah, I've made a decision. I'm gonna try to incorporate that more. As I'm looking at it, I'm trying to, here's something that did throw me off though. You'll notice when I'm putting in sort of the ceiling part of it with these flat roofs, it doesn't 100% line up, and I can't figure out why. Now it's close enough that you can't really see it. And if you're not looking for it, if you're not flying above and zooming in, so I'm not letting it go for now, but I need to figure that out. I need to figure that out. And I will. I'll figure it out. I'm sure. Okay, moving on to these doors. I finally had the bright idea of putting double doors in and putting them on both sides. I don't know why I didn't think of that before. Obviously, if you put the doors on both sides, it's going to cover up the fact that it doesn't quite line up perfectly with any of the gaps. So, note to self, put an inside door and an outside door. Dum-dum. And here I'm going to go ahead and fake another zookeeper entrance. We're going to do the same thing we did like on the backside of the wild dogs, where I just put down 2 of those fences and put a little stick across. I always want to put this chain, but it's just too thick. So we're just going to put a stick horizontally across, line up the 2 fences like so. There we go. And then we'll build up that area. I didn't spend a lot of time decorating it here because I'd already gone insane. But I did have to put it in a power grid. As I mentioned before, power generator. So we're going to go ahead and use this sort of side building that I put on our caretaker's display that didn't do anything. And I measured it out to make sure it wouldn't affect guest happiness either way. It's actually about a perfect distance. And then we went ahead and just built that up right in there, and it worked perfect. So it's another reason I like building those little things. Not only do I think it makes the building itself more interesting, but it helps correct for the frequent mistakes I make. Okay. Moving on now, I believe it's time to put in the signage. And we've got a grizzly bear outline here. And you may have noticed I just threw these 3 4-meter walls down here, just because I thought it would line up nicely. And we'll go ahead and put in, just write down grizzly bears in the same blue, or maybe, no, I'm going to put them in a darker blue. So I think the easiest way to do this is just grab all the letters you need, kind of put them in there, and then go through and adjust. And it's going to take a little play and a little practice to get them right. But once you wiggle and jiggle enough, you'll eventually get them all lined up, like so. And I'm not going to subject you to all of this, because it's going to be the same process for each and every letter. But there you go. You can see we've got our grizzly bears in, and we'll go ahead and put poles on either side, just to give it a little bit more character. And in fact, let's go ahead and put those poles throughout. I really kind of like them. Let's put in some street lights. Get this area nice. Now, the thing I'm concerned about now is kind of this area here. I don't want guests just looking at plain grass and a bald fence. So go ahead and throw in a bunch of trees and rocks. And I very purposely am not trying to make this look too manufactured or manicured. So I'm trying to keep it kind of random. Don't want everything perfectly spaced out. Just as if this area was kind of like a natural area that looked like that to begin with, and we just left it alone. Throwing in some of the trees for the grizzly bears on the outside of the grizzly bear exhibit to kind of theme that area a little bit more. You're not going to see those trees throughout the rest of our zoo, most likely, because this zoo, I believe it's in Africa, I want to say. I believe this zoo is actually in Africa on the globe. And of course, we put in a cold weather species. So you'll notice the foliage is different for the bears. It also means we have to remember, and this is something I completely didn't even think about when I was building this exhibit until it was much later, you have to remember to build in temperature control because it's the natural ambient temperature on this part of the globe is too hot for the grizzly bears. You're going to see we have to go in and put in air conditioners throughout the exhibit to make them happy, which is expensive because it raises the cost of continually powering those. It's not a one-time thing with the air conditioners. It goes on the monthly budget because for some reason the power company wants me to pay them every month. Ridiculous, I know. Anyway, go ahead and put in a couple of bear signs here. And then I wanted to mirror them so they were both kind of, the paw that you could see is pointing towards the entrance and the exit. They're not going to bother marking which one's the entrance and which one's the exit. I'll let them decide. They can come and go however they please. And at this point, let's go ahead and line these paths. And I wanted to do a little something special in these gaps I kind of left in the pathway, but I don't have like just a bear statue, which is unfortunate. I do have this nice grizzly bear signage, and I only managed to hang one of the signs upside down, so that was a sad time. But in order to take care of our what do we do in the middle problem, I decided to just kind of put in these little like posts, or this little like log post, and fill in with a little bit of grass. And in the area behind it, we're just going to do the same kind of theming. Put in the rocks, put in the grass around it. This time I'm purposely leaving a little bit room around the actual fence itself, or around the actual pathway itself. I put down the umbrella trees while I'm thinking of that, just so you're not seeing the zookeeper area. And I also want to make it feel very much like once you pass that last viewing area for the warthogs and the ostriches, you're in your own little zone, and it's all about the grizzly bears. I don't want people like looking back and forth between the two. I worry that I might have put the entrance to the grizzly bears too close. I don't think I did. I'm worried that I did, but I think there's enough separation between the two. Alright, so that finally concludes the build mode. It took us a while, but I'm going to go ahead and just kind of walk you through the zoo so you can see everything that we did to get the grizzly bears up. So we're going to go right through the entrance here. And of course, we've moved the information, flew away. We've moved the information stack over to here. So you can see that the guests can easily get in there, sit down, although nobody's doing it right now, so we'll need to keep an eye on that, make sure the hitboxes aren't messed up. Of course, you can still go right in and view the warthogs and the ostriches in our main exhibit in that area there. If we go over to the left, it'll take us to our giant tortoises and our wild dogs. But now, if we swim around to the right, we can keep going down here, and you can clearly see our well-marked grizzly bears. Need to trim some of the grass there because it's poking through, but other than that, still got this little viewing area for the warthogs and the ostriches if you want another look at them. But let's go ahead and show you the sort of outside area of the grizzly bear exhibit. So it's looking pretty good, and you can see that people are already inside, already looking at the bears themselves. Let me just swing around so you can see the other hair. So whoop, and now I'm in the middle of the savannah. How did I get here? Will I ever make it home? No way of knowing. Boy, I really did move us out there. Where are we? There we go. Okay, let's get the camera back where it should be. Oh, the warthog's going inside. So, getting us back to human being height and view, you can see that you're able to see the warthog fence, but it looks like it's pretty well decorated, so I'm not upset with that at all. We've got the lights in so that you can sit in the benches at night and still see well. Let's go ahead and go inside the actual grizzly bear exhibit here. So this is our inside viewing area. First thing we need to do is do some research on the two-way glass, so we're not having this cracking problem in the sun. And you can actually see we got a pretty good view of a bear butt right now. It's coming in here to delight our guest. To either side of it, you're going to have both the donation booths and the places where you can get some information about the grizzlies. And of course, on the back walls, we do have just kind of the random general information signs. It's going to teach us about what's going on. Why that one's got elephants on there, that's unfortunate. I might change it to a different one just so it's better theming. I think that one might be about poaching or deforestation or something. Oh well, we'll continue along the path now, getting a little bit higher. Of course, as we go through here, we're going to see that there is a zookeeper only entrance that we're not going to go into. Instead, we're going to continue down the pathway to this viewing station. Those nice high walls that you have to have for grizzlies. Can't believe grizzlies have to have a height of 6.5 feet, I think, to stop them from climbing out. Obviously, we can see that same bear over here. So you can get a pretty good view. You can see their inside structure, where that goes. You can kind of see where their where the inside viewing area is, but since I didn't want to cover up the enrichment items we put down, either that raised pallet or the little logs that they can swat. So I didn't want to cover those up. But putting that line of trees in does a good job making it look like I'm not just looking at the other people, and the other people aren't just looking back at me. So I'm pretty happy with that, actually. I wonder if that's actually enough. I might end up... Yeah, in fact, let's double check. I think I did forget. It's just coming back to me now. Yes, I don't have enough plants in here. I think That's a sadness. They need more coverage. So let's go ahead and do that real quick before I forget. Sorry about that. I was thinking I would have done everything correctly once I had raised the fences up to fit. But it says more trees, so more trees they shall have. And we'll just kind of build it in and make it a little more generally foresty. Da-da-da. And we'll click on the bear to see if it likes that. 45%, so we're closer. We're zeroing in. Enrichment's fine. Still don't quite have the amount of coverage they want. That type of coverage is inappropriate for this animal. Where is the umbrella tree? I didn't know there was an umbrella tree in this exhibit. Well, I don't want it there, so let's get rid of it. And brush willow tree. Somehow, the exhibit items I had put in there. Oh no! Plant coverage is severely inappropriate for this animal. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué? Well, it's not listing on the others. That's inappropriate. So that's a little odd for me. What we might need to do is go into this area here that has pretty much nothing. Left it kind of sparse. Let's go ahead and build up a little tree area here, since that counts towards our bear's happiness. Research complete. Oh, there's the other bear. Let's see how it's doing. Plants, still not quite the amount of plants it wants. And that could just be because it can't see the other ones right now where it is. But we still need more plant coverage. Wowzer. Lulu. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and just keep putting these plants in. I want to thank you for joining me today. If you have any suggestions or ideas on how to improve it, any questions about what I did or why I did it, go ahead and just leave a comment below. It's going to be the best way to reach me, and I love to have the comments. Try to respond when I see them, at least with a thumbs up. I don't know if I'll necessarily have anything interesting to say, but if I have anything interesting to say, I say it. If I just appreciate it, you'll get the little thumbs up, at the very least. At the very least, I'm promising a thumbs up. I don't want these trees to be too high because I don't want them to be seen outside the bear habitat. But yeah, that's going to probably do it for me today. I want to thank you for joining me. If you like this video, be sure to click on that like button so I know. If you want to keep up with this series, best thing to do is hit that subscribe and then ask for that little bell notification. That's going to be the best way to let you know when my infrequent, but well, infrequent's not the right word, irregular posts happen. I'm not on a set schedule. It's kind of when I have time to do it, and it depends on the size of the exhibit, but I'm having a lot of fun in this game. I'm hoping you're having a lot of fun watching me. And anyway, this is Zoo Tycoon Steve saying goodbye!